Hello, and welcome back to the Rising Star podcast, brought to you by blackmint.io. I'm Sharika McEwen,
And Ayobami Adeji.
and we're your hosts.
So, as you all know, this show is for students and recent graduates looking to be inspired by professionals who look just like you, making it big in the tech industry.
You got it, Aya. More importantly, we want to inspire all of you guys to pursue a career in technology so that together we can create a more diverse and inclusive tech industry. Because, as we all know, after all, diverse teams build better products.
And as always, we've got the blueprint for you right here. So, today we've got a very special guest by the name of Tobi Ogunbiyi.
Tobi leads the internal operations at Blackmint. He's really passionate about building a future where many more Black students can pursue a career in technology and in turn build a future that includes the Black community. He graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree from Computer Science at the University of Toronto. He's currently a software engineering team lead at FreshBooks, heading application reliability and cloud operations. He's also worked on re-architecturing FreshBooks applications and infrastructure to run in the cloud from an on-premise data center. Previously, Tobi also co-founded an educational software company before joining FreshBooks. So, let's bring in Tobi.
Hello, hi everyone.
Hey,
Thank you
Tobi.
Hi, Tobi.
Yeah,
How's
hi.
it going,
Oh my
buddy?
goodness. It's going good. Just hearing you talk about me like that kind of really trips me out. I don't get to hear that type of introduction often. Um, thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm more than happy. I'm privileged to be here and to be on this fantastic show that you two awesome hosts, Sharika, you're doing a fantastic job, and Ayo by me as well, doing a fantastic job. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And to everyone
Awesome.
listening, I am so excited that we get to be here together just to talk, to share, to get to
Yeah.
to get to talk, right?
Yeah, go Black Mint, man.
Blackmint,
Yeah.
giving you the blueprint.
Right here.
Yeah.
All right, Tobi. So, you know why you're here. Our lovely audience knows why you're here. So, let's get into things, shall we?
All right. Sounds good.
All right. So, Tobi, we want to get to know more about you, okay? So, how about you tell us about yourself? But more importantly, we want to know about your upbringing, perhaps maybe a little bit about your early life, until you started your first post-secondary school. Let's start there. Sounds
All
good?
right. Sounds good. Sounds good. I'm Tobi Ogunbiyi. From Nigeria. In case my name doesn't quite give that away, I grew up in a bit of a smaller town in Nigeria. I grew up in the northeastern part of the country. The population is about 600,000 people. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of people, but the context is largest cities in Nigeria have a population between 11 million and 15 million people. So mine, I consider kind of a smaller town. My friends used to make fun of me that I'm from the countryside, which, yeah, you could argue that I'm from the countryside. But so talking more about my early childhood. So I grew up in a family. I'm the youngest of 5 siblings. Both my parents have been really hardworking, have always been very, very enthusiastic about pursuing careers, have always been quite ambitious with how they looked at making an impact. And so they raised all 5 of us to have the same thing, where it was quite often that we'll have questions, about what I'm doing next, what I hope to achieve, what I hope to learn from what I'm doing. So growing up, the environment was always one that we were constantly being challenged, to think a bit deeper, consider things a bit more, explore beyond what we know, and sometimes feel uncomfortable. So that's kind of the overall layout. I'm not quite sure exactly where you're hoping to go with that question, but just stop me if you think I'm going too far in one direction. So
No, you're doing perfect.
okay.
Perfect, yeah.
So about early childhood, so I went to a high school that's wasn't as big. Again, like my hometown wasn't really large, and so I probably had about 60, 70 people in my particular class. We were split into two classes over the course of my This is mostly secondary school at this point in time, so grade 6 to grade 12. And honestly, to be very honest, my experience with computers was always kind of the same thing. So almost every year, would have an introductory course to computers where, we talk about different parts of a computer. We talk about the monitor, the keyboard, the mouse. And it was kind of on repeat, to be honest. Like that was kind of year over year, the experience we had. Sometimes we'll do a few things. We had a few classes around typing in Word. We also had a typewriting class as well, so I actually used typewriters to type. That was I found that actually more fascinating than using the computers, just because the typewriter was like a physical machine, a device where you interacted with it. It made nice noises, and you kind of type it.
Yeah.
And you could learn how to type on it, and as soon as you were done, you had a physical thing that you could hold on to. I'm serious, and so to me, it was way more exciting than a computer. It was better technology, right? But what I found out was towards my grade 10, grade 11, I just began being curious about. Right about then, I had my first encounter with mobile phones, and so I was curious about how mobile phones worked. There was this tiny small thing, that you had. Back then, it was just a black and white display, so it wasn't really much you could see, but you could still see pixels in it. You could still see things that showed up and things that appeared and disappeared. And so I was so fascinated with that, and even the games. There were games on there that you could play, and I was so fascinated with just how it was that I could play a game on this small device. And before then, to be honest, I already had experience with video game consoles. Sega Mega Drive. I'm sure some people might know about that. That wasn't mine. I never had that. It was a friend's. Super Nintendo. I never had that. It was a friend's. My very first console was a PlayStation 1. That was kind of the first one. But to me, that was even way too far-fetched because there was so much color, so much going on, so I couldn't really even bring myself to think about it. But really, the first thing that piqued my interest was cell phones, and just the fact that I could see and play simple games on there. And so, honestly, not much activity happened on my interest. It was just kind of, okay, it's interesting stuff. But then towards the end of my high school, by grade 12, where we had to pick what to do next, I talking with career counselors, talking with peers, talking with my parents. I think people saw the fascination I had with just, I guess, mobile phone or just cell phones. And so I heard suggestions, would you explore something in computers? I'm like, that sounds interesting. To be honest, though, I wanted to be a pilot when I was probably 4 or 5 years old. One of my uncles was a pilot. Unfortunately, he actually passed away about a month ago, and he was very, very dear to me. But so in my mind, he was basically one of the coolest people on the planet. He had this fancy uniform that he wore. He was a pilot, and he was actually Nigeria's first pilot that was from Nigeria that led the Nigerian Airways. Anyway, the different story. A very fantastic guy. So I thought about being a pilot as being fascinating initially, but eventually I kind of landed on, through happenstance, through interaction with different people, through a bit of interest, being interested in computers. That was the extent that I knew. And the options I had were computer engineering or computer science, and that was kind of about it, going to university. So I applied to university, and although I did university in University of Toronto, my very first university was actually where I met Ayo. And this was in a university in Nigeria called Obafemi Awolowo University. I know it's a mouthful, but we call it OAU, and that was kind of about it, OAU. And so that was more or less where I ended up going to university. Now, I only spent 2 years there. I pursued computer engineering. To be very honest, I wasn't satisfied with what I was learning, because by the time I had gotten to university, I had looked at what curriculums look like around the world, what types of languages people were learning, computer languages, programming languages, and what types of things people were able to build. Mm-hmm. And I just was not getting that at all from my university. In fact, it was so known that you might not get the type of experience that you desire. That people usually come attend university, and after classes are done, you go off and you go learn whatever language you want to learn. You go kind of practice what you want to practice, and people just came to university for the degree, but people ended up learning outside the university. And so
Yeah.
by the time I went to, after my first year, I was frustrated. I wasn't quite learning what I thought I'd learn, and I thought it was a waste of time. So I was actually a bit on the edge there of actually dropping out, because I just wasn't getting what I thought I was going to get, and it was unnecessarily difficult, where lecturers made life difficult for you. A whole bunch of people just made life difficult for you, and it just didn't seem worth it to me. So I had that conversation with my parents, and they were a bit nervous about me dropping out of school, because I guess that was kind of a bit of an issue. And so the door opened up potentially for me to explore schools elsewhere. And now I already had left school by then, and he had come to Canada, and so I connected with him, saying, "Hey, how are things going in Canada?"
Yep.
And then I also then did some research to figure out what options existed for me. And Canada offered a good option because education was slightly cheaper, but the quality was basically just as high, if not better, than the US. And also opportunity afterwards. Toronto was a fantastic city in terms of opportunity. And so putting all these together, Toronto really was where my heart was. So I applied. I didn't think much of it. I just said, I'm already in university. What the heck? I applied. And I believe my transcript actually went to University of Toronto, Mississauga.
Oh.
But for some reason, I ended up being admitted to, I applied to both, St. George campus and Mississauga, but I ended up being accepted in St. George and not Mississauga. And I'm thankful for that, because St. George is the only campus. Anyway.
Ouch.
Sorry, UTM folks. Just kidding.
That's a joke, UTM Scarborough. Anyway. So anyway, that's a joke. This is a joke. Eventually, I ended up in U of T, and so that's kind of how my journey, post-secondary journey. I know you asked me for early childhood, post-secondary. I'm sorry I gave you a very long
No.
about how I got there, but that's kind of about it.
No, that was really good. That was really, really good. Thanks, Toby, for that story. And yeah, I'm really glad that we met in OAU. And even though I was there for only less than a year, it was really great meeting you. And honestly, like, we wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for that. So that's amazing. Like,
what a small world.
Yeah, like you took that initiative to start over, even though you were already 2 years in. But now look at you. So, like, guys, don't ever be afraid to start over. It's not like even that experience, I'm sure, helped you in your first year at U of T, right? So that's amazing.
Yeah, and just to Io's point, I think the great thing about not being afraid to fail is when you're able and ready to fail fast and fail early, because that's when you're able to really, learn from your own mistakes and reflect and just come out stronger. So
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Toby. So we know you grew up in Nigeria. You crossed paths with Aya at one point. Here you guys now are together on this podcast. And so you ended up at U of T. So can you tell us about what the change was like when you moved from Nigeria to University of Toronto? Is there anything in particular that was a huge difference?
Yeah, absolutely. And so a lot was different. The day I arrived was a nice sunny day. It was about 31 degrees. It was the 31st of August, and it was 31 degrees. It was just hot, great, fantastic day. And slowly after that, September hit, and it just kind of went downhill, I guess. It got really cold really quickly. But the weather was one thing, and getting used to the weather was definitely something else. But I think culturally, things were just drastically different. So from a academic perspective, I all of a sudden found myself in a school that was really known for their academics, and there were also a lot of professors that I encountered were very passionate about teaching and about making sure students actually really understood what they were being taught. Professors were also very up to date as to what was going on in the industry. So things that I just did not get. So my very first class, I remember I walked in, and I So very first computer science class. Um, the professor spoke about, first of all, he pulled up pictures of his summer holiday, and he had pictures of his family and saying how they went vacationing. I think it was maybe somewhere in Niagara or something. I can't even quite remember. But I just remember being how approachable this professor was, and how he just put it out there, put himself out there, his family out there to a whole bunch of strangers that he just met. And that really stuck with me. And then the next thing he did was he moved on to say, um, during this class, we're going to end up creating a mini Photoshop. And that's what he said. At the end of this class, after 4 months, you would have all the skills to be able to make your own Photoshop. And so when he just said that, I just thought to myself, oh my goodness, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yep.
All the 2 years I spent, all the time ahead of time, I'm just like, all that was I never felt that moment versus just in the hour when he said that. And truly, to his credit, at the end of the class, we ended up making a simple application where you could crop photos. You could
Very
even
cool.
you could do red eye reduction, and this was in groups of 2 people. So it was really fantastic, and I really enjoyed kind of the very first class there. And that professor is still etched in my mind. Paul Grease, never forget him. He's
Shout out
someone that
Paul Grace.
I still talk to. Yep, shout out to Paul Grease. I
Oh
still talk
yeah.
to him every so often, and so yeah, that was my first encounter when it came to, I guess, a bit of a cultural shift. So, but the other side was being here all alone, an international student, meant that I had a lot of adjusting to do. I was very this culture was very strange to me. First of all, a lot of people did not look like me. There were a lot of people from different races,
Mhm.
that you could imagine. And so getting used to that, I wasn't necessarily, that didn't turn me off from wanting to engage. Instead, I was just curious because I came from a certain background, and actually I was even happy to be in an environment that was a bit different to try and learn from other people. And so I had to very quickly embrace the differences that I see in people, and then leverage curiosity to try and learn from that. And I'm quite happy that my stance when I arrived was actually to be a bit open to learn about other people, learn more about other people's experiences, than to be closed, because I felt like that helped me adjust pretty quickly. I was able to get settled. I was able to develop a friend group
Mhm.
quite quickly, and I
Yeah.
think that social support was critical because, especially when it came to academic work. Math 137 is calculus. I'm sure anyone who has gone to U of T would know that it was grueling to just to go through that course. But having a social support where you could have people that you could talk to about it, you could basically share your nightmares about the courses you're taking together. It really helped in adjusting. And so, I mean, to people that might be out there, thinking, we all come from different backgrounds. I mean, it doesn't get any more different to be dropped in a whole different country, to be dropped in a whole different, school. But I think our attitude towards how we perceive people around us does shape a lot of things, and so people usually pick up on that. And so, my recommendation would be, stay curious. Stay curious about other people around you. Genuinely approach people with an open heart, and of course, make approaching with an open heart means that there's a potential that you might be hurt, because you've kind of put yourself out there. But I think um, I believe in a lot of good from humanity. That I feel like there's a lot that we can gain by just being open, and I'm quite happy that very early on I was able to do that, and I've built friendships that have lasted a whole bunch from my first year up until about now. Some friendships kind of fizzled out, some of them stuck. So that's kind of where I'm at. Again, I don't know if
Yeah.
I've answered the question, but
No, you
maybe I have.
did. You
I'm not
did.
sure.
You did. Honestly, that was really good. And like what you mentioned about friendship, and how you were open to learning about different cultures and different kinds of people, and opening your circles to like people from other places. I think that was really really good. And even as a bonus to that, you were actually able to start a company right before with those friends. But before we talk about that, did you have any co-op experience while you were in school?
Yes. So here's my journey. So talking about failing. So Sharika, I like how you said, fail fast. A pattern I've seen in my life is that I like trying out certain things, and then I'll see if it's successful or not. So between my second and third year, I was curious about maybe doing research, maybe doing some sort of grad school. I wasn't quite sure what, and so I applied to a program at my school, and to my surprise, again the friendships I had developed with some professors actually opened up opportunity for them to recommend me for a particular program. Now, let me preface by saying I was not the smartest person in the class. Right? I'm not necessarily, to be honest, I'm not the smartest person in a lot of rooms. I'm smart, but not necessarily, the smartest person. Um, but I think developing personal relationships helped me discover certain opportunities that existed. And so a professor recommended me to a different professor to do research. And so summertime, I went for research, did 4 months of research in computers. It was kind of a very specific niche area. And
Mm-hmm.
very quickly, over those 4 months, I realized I don't like the unpredictability of research. The fact that you do some research and you're working on sort of things that might be really far out that may or may not pan out.
Yep.
There are a lot of variables around it, and I realized that I didn't quite enjoy that. There was no guarantee that what I'm working on would have an impact. 3 years, 4 years down the line. It's kind of a maybe 10 years from now, maybe 15. You never know. And so quickly I got off that idea of going into grad school or kind of thinking about grad school. So that was an example where I thought I wanted something, I tried it out, didn't quite work out. And
Yeah.
so to your point, Ayo, I then opted to go for co-op, which was part of the program. And to everyone out there, if you ever see anything about co-op, I strongly recommend that you take it, because co-op is sort of a very low effort initiative for companies where companies can actually put up job postings to get co-ops. And because the government does give a bit of some tax breaks when it comes to co-ops, they're very eager to try and take on co-ops. It's also a great opportunity for companies to explore sort of new grads. So instead of hiring new grads that they might not have any experience with at the company, they
Mm-hmm.
could bring on someone for co-op for maybe 4 months, maybe 8 months, maybe 16, and they know that it's a short amount of time, so it's a fixed amount of investment. So if things don't work out, the company can kind of just go their separate ways, and they don't have to worry about you. But if things work out, which they usually, hopefully they will, then you could probably get the ability to get an offer in future. So whatever it is, if you're doing uh, digital marketing, or you're doing software engineering, or you're doing even culinary school, if you have the option of co-op, I strongly recommend co-op. It's a great option. So I did co-op for 14 months, and it was one block of 14 months. We had the option of doing 12 to 16 months. I chose 14 just to kind of give me a bit of a break before and after. And I did that in Toronto at a company, and that was my first real job, really. Before that, I had done a few other things. I did some window cleaning one summer, and then after that window cleaning summer, then I did an eavesdrops, window cleaning and eavesdrops, and the stories from that particular experience that stick to me to this day. So there was that, and then second summer was research, like I said, and then the first summer I ended up doing co-op, which lasted 14 months. So that's kind of about it. It was here in Toronto. I really, really enjoyed the fact that I was able to learn so much. That was really, I felt like I gained more from the co-op than the company gained from me. But I also contributed, so that was kind of where we're at.
I feel
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Oh, you can go on. Well, I was gonna say, I feel like that's when you've really made the most out of your academic career experience, when you're contributing back, but you're also trying to maximize any opportunities or resources that your school is giving to you. And it seems like that's exactly what you did, Toby. So that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I definitely support co-ops. I don't think I would be here if I didn't have my co-op experience. So
Agreed.
if you get that opportunity, just go for it. But yeah, that was great, Toby. So after you graduated from U of T, like I mentioned before, you started a tech company with one of your friends. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So actually, the story is a lot more complicated than you would think, right? So during my co-op term, towards the end of the co-op term. So we had 9 to 5 jobs, so we'll go work 9 to 5. And because school was kind of unbounded, it wasn't 9 to 5, it was kind of just all the time, really. Especially computer science just ate up my entire time. So I found myself with a lot of free time. So from 5 p.m. to 9 a.m. basically, it was free time. And so we were all very curious about new technology that was coming out. We're all curious about doing something. And so here's one advice that I'll probably give. And to be very honest, I got this advice when I went to a conference, and I don't even remember the name of the person who said this advice to me. But at the conference, I didn't even remember a lot of it. But this is the one part I remember, which was, whatever you see yourself doing in the future, don't wait till the future to start doing it. Start doing it today. Like, start right now. And that was more or less the gist of it. And because I was thinking at the time I was in third year, and there were all these technologies, I was thinking of maybe doing something, some sort of like web related software. I hadn't really spent that much time diving into it. I was thinking that maybe I'll get a job that would get me exposure to that. But when I heard that piece of advice, I thought, you know what? Like, why don't I figure out what I want to be doing, which is really building a lot of web applications that serve customer requests and help to solve a problem. And so that advice kind of spurred me to begin to tinker with some web technology. And then I had 3 other friends at the time. They were also all in software, all interested. And so we looked around and said, what problem do we think we have? And so an issue there was, I used to be a decent note taker, and so I had a set of notes. And so sometimes towards when a test comes around or an exam comes around, some of my friends would begin to borrow my notes. And so I give my notes from one class here, one class there, one class there, and then at the end of it, I would forget who had what.
Yeah.
And so that was a bit of an issue. And we looked around and said, okay, how about if we just decided to make a centralized place where we all just took notes. We could all share notes. So one person could take notes and other people can also collaborate and take notes at the same time. And that was kind of the idea. Okay, how about we have one repository for all the notes? And so Evernote existed before then, but Evernote didn't quite solve our problem because sometimes the notes were annotations for slides. So let's say a prof had a bunch of slides. Sometimes the notes were beside the slides. Evernote didn't really give you that, so that wasn't great. At the time, Google didn't quite have a nice way for you to do it. But anyway, so we decided to tackle that problem. So we had no idea, just kind of threw ourselves in the fire, built, this very janky prototype, but learned so much along the way. And so that was towards the end of the co-op term. And so by the time we came back in 4th year, we already had a prototype of, this note-taking thing, and we were using it. And we were using it, and we're happy with it. And so we approached a few professors in computer science and said, hey, would you be willing to run a pilot, to try out this software? And kudos to them, they jumped on it. They said, yeah, sure, we'll run a pilot. We'll try it out. So we ran that pilot, and then we kind of got a bit of feedback. We got some students using it, taking notes on it, and it was really eye-opening because hey, here we were. We had a class basically of about 40 students using software that we had built, over the course of some time, and it was so. I remember the feeling I got, which was that I had made something that people were using. It almost felt like the notes I had from the typewriter in the past, where I was typing a typewriter. I was like, oh, look at this, I made something. So it felt really, really good to have made something like that. And so that was kind of where we started. And we thought to ourselves, maybe there's something here. So we took that piece of software, we tried to pitch it to different parts of U of T, pitched it from an accessibility angle because we realized that each class we had someone coming to make announcements, asking if anyone is willing to take notes and share notes with students that might have accessibility challenges or accessibility needs. And so we went to the accessibility department to try and get this through to them. And so there was interest. What we found was that it was difficult to get someone who had the means to be able to pay for it. So that was kind of where we're at. And so we batted this around for some time. We tried to get through to other universities around, give a demo to different universities in Ottawa and Waterloo and what the case might be. And I just realized that we couldn't quite get this product market fit, which was we had something, it solved the problem, but there wasn't quite a market for it. And so that was kind of where we're at. I mean, I don't mean to use startup jargon or anything like that, but that's really, I think, where we kind of fell felt felt we had issues there, and things were just not quite working out. And so eventually, what we did was we had a team of people that were great working together. We had met a lot of other companies along the way of our own journey, and so we pivoted and began to build prototypes for other people. So we built prototypes for a few companies that kind of had ideas that they were trying to pursue, and they were really happy with where that was at. So we had done about 4 to 5 prototypes, and so I call them prototypes, but really they were full on functioning pieces of software that could handle about 1,000 to 2,000 users pretty reliably. So that was kind of where we're at, and that was towards the end of my journey with that particular group of folks. Anyway, so I'll probably pause about here because I mean I have more to say leading afterwards, but I'll pause here
Okay.
for now.
Okay. Honestly, Toby, that was. I'm so happy that you were able to share that with us. I hope
Really?
everyone listening, really learned a lot from that, because Toby really took that initiative, right? He was like, okay, well, why would I wait until tomorrow? Why don't I just do what I want to right now? So he took that chance with his friends and he built something, and looked like it worked for, at least he definitely learned a lot. He was able to get some traction. He wasn't able to get the product market fit he was hoping
Which is
for.
fine.
Yeah, exactly. But that was great. So after that, you moved on to FreshBooks, where you started out as a software engineer. Can you tell us about the experience transitioning to this
Sure.
new organization? After being a founder, and how you moved on to your current role as a team lead.
Yeah, so that's great, and thank you for asking that. So I left the last bit of my answer kind of on the edge there. So we we had built a few sort of like MVPs, like minimum viable products for some companies,
Mhm.
and we had done that well. Companies were very happy. We saw people gain some users, and kind of as soon as we built this thing and it was up and running, and they had some good traction. We kind of we let them go, and then we're off to the next project. And once in a while, people came back, to have a few things added. But the fact that we always let things go, and then we kind of moved on to a new one, and we didn't really get to see how that particular piece of software worked, the impact that it had. That wasn't very satisfying to me. So that was like one part of why I felt a bit of dissatisfaction. But the
Mhm.
second part of it too was that the software we built were for users, 1,000 users, 2,000 users, which was fine. But we didn't really tackle issues at scale. We didn't really consider hundreds of thousands of users, maybe millions of users doing a lot of things concurrently. And I felt like at that point in time in 2014, the future was going to be really a lot of web type services that I really wanted to learn and have experience in scaling web services. That was kind of like my mindset. Sure, there was the mobile apps that were coming out, there were wearable technologies coming out, but in the back of my head, it was all these things, even the smart TVs, everything else would need to be powered by some sort of web service, and being able to know how to scale a web service, and how to deliver a service to hopefully millions of people
Mhm.
reliably. That was really what I was hoping to learn. And so when I began to look around, I found FreshBooks, and it was a big enough company that they had scaling challenges, especially with users, and I felt very interested in joining, kind of to learn from that. And so, to answer your point, the switch for me was I, you could say I put my entrepreneurial journey on ice. That was
Yeah.
that was kind of because I realized part of the some holes I had in my skill was
Mm-hmm.
just knowing how to scale technology. And so I figured, sure, I have this passion of starting something, pursuing something, but I figured I almost had to put that on hold so I can go and acquire a few skills along the
Mm-hmm.
way so that I can come back. And by the time I come back, hopefully I have way more experience that will hopefully help me to be a good, better technical leader in whatever company I decided to either join or start or what the case might be. So that was kind of I guess the journey for me. So I remember thinking to myself that, oh yeah, I came from a company where I did almost everything. Like I was software developer one day, I was out talking to customers the next day, I was you know out there and doing all of these things. At some point, I was even designing T-shirts. It was just ridiculous. It was basically just did whatever we had to do to get the company kind of out there. Even the
Yeah.
banners and things like that we had at the conferences. And so I had to switch from that mode to say, let me develop my craft, develop my skill. Let me really hone my sort of profession, and then when I do that, hopefully that will make me very valuable for when I decide to, either join something or kind of move on. And so that was where I was at. And so I recall there were a few skills I was hoping to learn. A lot of them were really technical type skills, and that was where I kind of started off as. So I joined as a software engineer. I was so privileged to have learned so much. At the same time, contributed a lot to kind of the direction that FreshBooks was going. And as time kind of went on, I found opportunity to be able to get into even more tech scaling type challenges, and that's how I found myself in my current team, where I was again privileged to have seen the migration of from a data center that was on-prem to the cloud, and that had just opened up a whole new world for me in terms of just learning and what I could get out of it. And so that was kind of how I got there. And so to be honest, I must say that there were a lot of people along the way that have helped me kind of identify those opportunities. For instance, I was a software engineer. I was trying to make a switch to kind of go into this platform engineering type role. There was
Mm-hmm.
a new team that was being spun up. My manager at the time kind of saw my desire to try that out, and so he encouraged me to join this new team. So I left kind of the comfort zone of the team I was in and joined this new team with people I hadn't worked with before. But it ended up being fantastic. We again moved to the cloud, and over time I got to actually lead this team itself as changes kind of happened around us. And I've been very, very privileged to have worked with very fantastic people that have just really contributed to how we're able to scale and serve customers. And now we're able to scale just based on the stack that we've built. We're able to scale and serve millions of customers. And so
Wow.
that's more or less how I guess my journey has been. So I'll say I really put some things on ice to develop certain skills, and I have a bit of a matrix of different skills that I do want to acquire. And part of it is it's great to be a technical leader. That's great. People really, that's very valuable. But you also have to be able to know when to lean on other people, when to know when to help develop and build other people around you. And so even being in my position as a team lead, I've had to pull myself back from having to jump into all the exciting technical challenges, but also make sure that I create room for team members to be able to develop their own skill. And so as time has passed, I've intentionally taken a backseat on certain items where I'll look at a certain project that's very shiny, very exciting, and I try and identify a team member that has the capacity to be able to do it, but might not necessarily have done it before because of just experience, but have the capacity to actually run with that project. And so I've kind of had to take a step back and kind of help to empower the people and either coach or mentor people through that. And so that has gotten me to learn and develop a lot, because in my view, my mindset is one person can only go so far, but a team of people that are all set up to actually pursue a particular goal will
Mm-hmm.
definitely do a lot better than just one person. And so that's part of my leadership, I guess, mindset and style. And also, if people that are on my team, if I'm able to provide whatever opportunity I can, such that they end up being a lot more productive than I am, that is kind of like my ultimate goal. So
Yeah,
that
for sure.
eventually I'm obsolete and I can kind of move on to other things, and people on that team actually able to thrive and do so well for themselves. So that's kind of part of, I guess, my
Yeah.
journey so far.
I think that's an amazing leadership philosophy. Like you have that metrics that you mentioned that you really wanted to learn certain things, but you actually prioritize your team, and that's what being a leader is all about. And recognizing the fact that maybe there's some other people who might be able to do something a little bit faster than you, or maybe they can't even do it as well as you sometimes, but you give them that opportunity to develop themselves, right? Because if you solve all the most difficult problems, then how are they supposed to grow? So yeah, so the fact that you're able to recognize that and push them, I think is amazing, and I hope you guys listening, you're looking forward to being a leader in your own right one day. Hopefully you get to be a leader as well. I do have a quick question though. So you mentioned something about moving from being a software engineer to a sort of platform engineer. Can you tell us what the difference is?
That's fair. So it's very murky territory. So a software engineer is basically someone that might build a certain website, or might build an application that you use, and they might be more focused on just how it's built. So how that all the functionality, making sure that you see the right widgets, making sure that when you click on sign up, you actually get to sign up. Um, they might not be necessarily keen about how does this piece of software perform when 100 people use it, 1,000 people use it,
Mm-hmm.
10,000 people use it. They might not be more focused on that piece of it, but it totally depends on where you are. So certain companies have engineers that are very specialized. So you focus on your own widget and that's it. And someone else focuses more on how the entire system interacts.
Mm-hmm.
Some companies have it such that it's fluid, where you have engineers that kind of are responsible for also how their own piece of software works at
Skills.
scale,
Mm-hmm.
scales. And so at our company, we at FreshBooks, at the time that I was kind of transitioning, it was at a point where everyone was responsible for how things scaled, but it wasn't being done well because it wasn't anyone's job. And so that's kind of how I got into this platform role. But my team was so peculiar because sometimes when you see a platform role, sometimes it's just a bunch of people that focus on that, and that's all they do. But my team was composed of software engineers that were software engineers that knew the platform. That all of a sudden now we're in this platform role. So we kind of had a bit of a wide reach where we could kind of reach into people's different code bases and say, hey, here's some new changes here for you, to make this kind of good. We didn't have to just prescribe and say, oh, here's our book and here are the things that you should do. Like we could actually get our hands in there, kind of show people what to do, and that kind of really, or show people how to go about doing something like that, and then kind of develop a pattern so that other teams can also see that.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that very valuable. So we didn't really use a rule book. Instead, we kind of got our hands in there and showed a pattern, and then empowered people to say, okay, well, we've done 2 out of the 10 that we have to do. So
Mm-hmm.
now, if you need help with the 8, let us know. But here's some documentation. Here's a tutorial of what we've done. And so that hands-on approach really helped us, only because we had a mixture of those skill sets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So what are some of the technologies that comes to mind that really helps you scale? From a regular level to like a more skilled. What are some of the technologies
So
you
that's
could tell us?
so that's so that's fair. So I mean, first of all, it's you might want to look at where you decide to run your code. So now cloud technologies are very popular. AWS, Google Cloud Platform. So AWS standing for Amazon Web Services. Google Cloud Platform is very popular. Microsoft Azure is also popular. I haven't really used Azure a whole lot, so I'm going to leave that aside. But so choosing a cloud provider is probably kind of the first step that I'll say. And then within that, you have to really look at what problem you're trying to solve in particular. So here's an example. Um, if you if you want to scale, I think you have to take into account what your limits are.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're trying to scale to, what is too much, what is too little, and really focus on that. So the example that I like to give is that I think software should be built to be enough in how it operates, because you could spend millions of dollars, if not billions, trying to build for the kind of the perfection, but instead you should focus on your own use case and say, like, what are we trying to build here? So different technologies. I'll say cloud providers provide things like databases that can scale, that are available across regionally. Each cloud provider, Google has its own different types of databases. Amazon has its own, and there are different types of depending on your challenges. If you're trying to just solve for an example is if you're trying to build a Wikipedia, you might decide to do like a NoSQL database that kind of scales globally. If you're trying to build, let's say, a to-do list, right? You might want to then go with like a SQL-based database, because maybe that to-do list might have cross references, with your email and what the case might be. So it quite depends on your own use case. I'm not quite sure if that answers your question.
No, it does. It does actually. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, I think the summary is the cloud technology allows you to build and scale really, really rapidly, right?
Yeah.
So you can decide what your use case is. You can determine what the range of the usage will be, and then based on that, pick the right technology. Usually, a sort of cloud technology to help you get to that goal. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. I hope you guys are enjoying this. I just wanted to get a little technical in this call because we have our first official, software engineer. So I wanted to make sure that you guys got a little bit of technical knowledge, and you guys can always Google stuff if you want to learn a little bit more about what he's.
And you can email me. I mean, I'll probably put down my information. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
And that's the spirit of Black Mint, folks.
Yeah. So, like, how has the company grown since you got there? Because I know it's kind of a startup. So, how has it grown in the 6 years you've been there?
So it grew from about 140 people when I joined to 420 people now. So it's significant. It's a lot of change has happened over that time. And I'm again very privileged to have really just been involved with the company at the time that I was. And
That's awesome. Okay, so yeah, Tobi, that was amazing. Okay, so you've definitely talked a lot about some of the technical things that you do at work. Can you tell us what are some of the specific skills required for a senior software engineer?
That's a great question, Ayo. I ask myself that question almost every day because the skills. So I think maybe let's unpack the full title. I feel like that might kind of help. So when you say senior, there's a lot of debate about what that is and what that could be. But I see it as someone who is responsible for themselves in terms of their own output and their productivity, but they're also responsible for creating a culture of openness, creating a culture of trust, where people trust each other, and creating a culture that people feel like it's safe for them to be themselves, for them to try things and fail without reprisal. And again, not just fail for the sake of failing and not be unaccountable, but actually do things. So make mistakes and learn from them. So by learning from them is trying to avoid the same mistake again. Right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, so I feel like senior is kind of has all that in there. Part of that too is that you're responsible for your own output, responsible for your team's output, responsible for what your team delivers or builds, and how that relates to the business goal. So sure, engineers, we like building stuff. That's cool. I also like building stuff. Sometimes I build stuff, that is not necessarily useful. But when it comes to time at work at a company, it's your responsibility as a senior engineer to make sure that what you're building actually meets the business objectives, what you're building actually meets a customer need, just to make sure that you're building the right thing. So that's kind of part of like what that senior means. What else is involved with that senior title is that what you build and when you deliver is also important. So what you build is crucial. When you deliver it is it on time? Is it delayed? Why is that so? So the project management aspect in tracking how you're doing, how well you're doing against kind of your estimates, and flagging risks that you might see. So from a tech perspective, you might have estimated something might take 2 months. By the time you dive into the code base, and by the time you begin to look at all the cruft from the past, maybe it's taking 3, maybe it's taking 4. Trying to make sure that you flag those risks pretty early on. Trying to make sure that you identify the biggest risks, and then you try and tackle them almost right away. So that's part of what that senior title, I guess, kind of entails. And then when you go to the engineer is just basically skills when it comes to programming, when it comes to database technologies, when it comes to, so programming could be both back end and front end. And these days, it could be a variety. There are honestly so many languages, so many frameworks. I can't even keep up, just being very honest. But I think for someone that might be starting out, I'll say trying to focus on kind of a few core technologies. So for instance, JavaScript is one that I'll say is kind of here for the long haul.
Yep.
And JavaScript has different parts of it. There's the front end part. You could use something like React.js. As the back end part, that you could use something like Node.js. Like these are kind of pretty standard technologies. Python is kind of a very standard programming language. It's used a lot in data science. I'm sure Io, you probably use it a lot.
Yeah, every day, every single day.
There you go. There you go. Sharika maybe use it as well. I'm not quite sure.
Not
No?
Python,
Okay, not
but a
Python.
bunch of other
Other
software
languages.
tools.
Okay, all right. So yeah, that's what there are a few tools like that. And again, there's so many tools coming out there, but I think the key is not to get overwhelmed with the tool. The key is to try and figure out what the fundamentals of programming are. In my view, if you really know and you're fluent in the fundamentals of programming in one language, you can easily transfer that to other languages.
Yeah.
It's almost like speaking kind of you can say maybe a Latin-based language. If you know English or French, there's a chance you can probably transfer some of that stuff elsewhere. Some words kind of translate here and there, but again, that's probably a terrible analogy. So just probably cut that out.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Honestly, Toby, that was so much wisdom. Like I'm even inspired just listening to all that. The way you broke down, the different parts of the senior role, into like the leadership part and the technical part and the business part, is really important to consider those things. So, obviously when you're starting out, you will probably start as a junior, but these are some other things to keep in mind and look to develop as you progress in your career. So, I guess my next question, again, with your experience, you went from being an entrepreneur to working in a company. Do you have any advice for students who are trying to figure out what to do, for example, right after university, whether they're trying to decide to go with the entrepreneurial route, whether they should go, work for a company? What advice do you have?
So this is great, and I almost feel not qualified to give any sort of advice. I mean, I know it's probably just a feeling that I have, but um, at the end of the day, I'll say it depends. Like every person is different. Everyone's circumstance is very different. And if you have an idea that you're really passionate about, my advice would be try it out. Today it's never been easier to launch a company, an idea, a business. The barriers for entry are so low
It's
in
crazy.
terms of like things that you can do to get out there. And I'll say you owe it to yourself to, at the very least, pursue the desires you have in your heart. Because you don't want to look back 10 years from now and say, oh, what could have been if I had done this. My philosophy is, leave nothing on the table. To be honest, like pursue, every day, every week, every month, just as if that's all you've got, because that's all we've got. To be
Really?
honest.
Seriously?
And so I'll say if you have ideas that you think might like you think are valuable, things, either things that might impact your community, things that might impact, the society in general, I'll say you should pursue it. And you'll learn from that. So you might learn about entrepreneurship, you might learn about what it takes to build a company, you might learn about skills that you have, skills that you might not have, skills that you might try and acquire. And I'll say like follow the journey and just try to make adjustments, because there isn't kind of a roadmap to with a straight line in there from where you are to where you hope to be. But I'll say constantly challenge yourself. And if that means starting your own company, yes, pursue that. If that means joining a company, to acquire skills, join a company to pursue your passions, do that. At the end of the day, I think as long as you're working towards a future that you've envisioned in your mind, and not just one that you're just going along with, just for the sake of it, I think the future is bright. This is so vague, so generic, because honestly, it depends on each person.
Honestly, yeah, it does depend on each person, but
I
what you're
agree.
saying makes a lot of sense. Never limit yourself. If you're passionate about something and you have a great idea, pursue it. Especially, and honestly, it's never too late. It's not just young people who can do this. You can always pivot. Toby knows I know people who have pivoted a lot. I've actually pivoted quite a bit. So you're constantly reinventing yourself and just keep pushing yourself. The sky's the limit.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you really do have to owe it to yourself, because one day you're gonna wake up and let's say you're 70 years old, and you're gonna look back on your life and you're gonna realize, okay, I was the person that was in control of the driver's seat. So again, you really do owe it to yourself to make things happen for you, because again, like, you are your biggest cheerleader.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's a very solid point, Sharika.
All right. So now that we have a good understanding of Toby and how he leads a team and what's it like being, a software engineer from being an entrepreneur, we want to switch gears a little bit, Toby, and we kind of want to go into your affiliation with Black Mint.
Hmm.
Exactly. Don't worry, we'll be very easy on you. So, Toby, since you're one of the founders of Black Mint, can you please walk us through how it all started and, why you feel it's really important, and what you do at the organization?
That's fair. Thank you, Sharika. So kind of backing up a little bit, in January of this year, I had a conversation with a few colleagues at work. Some of them ended up being part of Black Mint now, but a few colleagues at work, and part of it was just talking about, hey, wouldn't it be good if we had sort of a mentorship thing for Black students? So that was January 2020. And we actually had a meeting scheduled for March 18th or something, or March 20th. And so the COVID lockdowns hit, and that never happened. And with all the civil unrest that happened over the course of the year, first of all, that was still in my mind. But then we began to organically talk amongst ourselves. So, sure, you might say I'm a founder of Black Mint, but I see it as all of us that are part of this organization have been having conversations over the course of this year. I'm sure a lot of us have just been reminded about all that's going on in our world, the injustices that do exist, especially anti-Black racism. And I'm sure that we're all keenly aware of this every single day. And so I think it's just happenstance that we happen to all be here at this particular time. It just happenstance that it happens that, I or Bernie and I really began to have this conversation, and then kind of sparked a bigger conversation. I see it as a series of conversations that ended up,
Yep.
having all of us, being part of the organization. And so I'm just so thankful that we're all part of this right now, because what I would like to see in future. So, for instance, part of what really broke my heart is seeing a report and reading the Peel School Board report, and just talking about how students that were basically shut out from pursuing careers in tech because of being derailed one way or the other. People just not even giving them the time of day to be able to give advice about careers. Students just being discriminated upon, and not being allowed to go to an academic stream, which basically limits options in future. And I just felt a burden on myself, where I'm a professional in this field. I have a certain amount of connections as a result of being a professional in this field. I have a certain amount of influence, which I might not see it as influence, but I do have a lot of influence. And so, what, I guess, can I do? What can we do to connect people in our community, in the Black community, to opportunities that exist, and then connect people that do have opportunities with people that are in need of these opportunities. So I see us as a bridge, hopefully, in bringing different worlds that we're part of together for the really benefiting the Black community. And so that's really what I'm passionate about. Is I hope to see a future where every Black kid in and I'm serious, in Canada, has the opportunity of experiencing technology before they get into university. They know at least 10 to 15 streams of technology, and they've decided, yes, they want to pursue some, or decided, what, I've tried out all 10 of them and I don't want any of this. I want to do something else. I want that option for every single Black child through high school, to have that exposure. And the decision to not choose tech should be one that is made with all the information available to them, as opposed to just because they're being railroaded one way or the other. So that's kind of my passion.
You want their choice to be their own choice.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree completely.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, I love hearing different people at Blackmate's perspective to, hearing what their perspective are regarding what the organization is and the direction. And I'm sure you can all hear, when Bernie was here, he shared his perspective, but they pretty much all align, right? We have really, really big goals for Black Mint, and I think we're on a really good start. So looking forward to, working with you guys and seeing how things go in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Toby, so speaking about Black Mint and mentorship and, providing that connection and that bridge, have you had any mentors in your life who have really positively impacted your career?
That's a great question. That's a very great question. I've had some mentors here and there. I'll say none that I'm constantly in touch with, maybe because I guess the different parts of my life that I'm trying to kind of work on. From the entrepreneurship side of things, I actually had someone that I met pretty early on, and he has his own company that he's running. He actually introduced us to a few investors. This was when I was working back in the day, and so he kind of mentored me a little bit over that time. I'm quite thankful for the time we spent together. I currently have someone that I talk to about sort of leadership and engineering management type of things. That's one person I talk to every so often here and there. But I think the next one I'm trying to find is a mentor that hopefully would push more of something along the lines of basically would help shape how I think about contributing. Hopefully some of the work that we're doing at Black Mint. So I'm still on a hunt for someone that might be in the not-for-profit space, someone that might have a bit of an inclination to really push social justice, especially for young black kids. I haven't found one yet. So I'll say yes, I have mentors, but they're for different life, like different things in life, I guess. And then I have a mentor, say, for family type things, and marriage and dealing with that. I have so there are a few people I talk to, but I'll say no one person that's 100%.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So guys, you can never have too many mentors.
Especially for marriage.
Yeah, especially for marriage.
I love it. I love it.
So Toby, so we've talked about your career journey, right? So you were obviously a high school student at some point. So if you were to say something to your high school self right now, what would it be?
One thing.
One thing.
One thing. I think it would be.
This one gets everyone.
It's going to be a wild ride. I think that's it.
Oh,
Because
Yeah.
exciting.
I think that's it. Like it's going to be a wild ride because I'm not quite sure what else to say because I mean like life is never in a straight line, at least not for me. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if Sharika, if for you if it is, or Aya if it is.
It is not.
But I think that's it because yeah, I think I think
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, just be ready for that, like just get ready for the ups and downs.
Yeah.
Exactly. You have your eyes set on one thing, but the universe will test you how bad you want that one thing, so you
Yep.
will go for a ride for it.
Oh
I'll say
yeah.
that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So moving along, we're gonna be really quick here for you, Toby. So, what would be the next step for Toby in your career journey?
That's a great question. I ask myself this question a lot, actually, and I'm still not quite clear on the answer. But here are a few things that I've got. So I'm very passionate about starting up companies and entrepreneurship and things like that. And so there's a particular product that actually my wife has started a marketplace to connect black women with black hairstylists, and so it's called Kibibi. I'm going to put a shameless plug in there.
Yeah, do
Wow,
it.
you make a DJ. I love it.
No, it's called Kibibi. Kibibi.
Kibibi.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so you can go to
Catchy.
kibibiapp.com, and that has like basically a whole listing of you can find wigs, you can find accessories like bonnets, and the whole idea is to make a marketplace for black hairstylists to publish their services and products, and for black women to subscribe. And so I feel like that's going to be some of the energy that I pour towards, because we'll spend a lot of time working on that. It took a long time. I mean, I don't want to admit how long it took to get this off the ground. But again, just to say out there, as long as talking about dreams and pursuits, as long as you're making progress, every single week towards something, hopefully you get there. It took us
Yeah.
about 4 years to actually launch it. I'm going to put it out there.
Congratulations, by the way.
So thank you,
That's
thank you so
amazing.
much. So
No problem. I'm excited to see what's coming up for that this year or next year.
Yeah, so that's kind of a bit of thank you so much. A very exciting push that we've got. Again, it takes time with these things, so we'll see
It
how
does.
it goes. But that's I think the biggest thing that excites me. But then on the other side is kind of I guess my day job for now is just learning and growing as a leader. I feel like that's kind of like the other side of it for me that I'm trying to grow and just finding ways of being able to be more engaged, especially with my team, and be more engaged with people's careers and making sure people are growing. So that's kind of the other side, I think, of this. So that's where we're at.
So we got Kibibi and just more progression towards your growth and focusing on your growth at work and becoming a better leader. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So moving to our next question, Toby, what book would you recommend to our fabulous audience tonight?
So a book, this might be cheesy, but it's
Cheesy's good.
The Outliers,
Oh, okay.
and it's by Malcolm Gladwell.
Okay. Yeah.
Heard of this book.
Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell is a Canadian author. He did
Repping
go
Canada.
whoop Canada. I mean, like now he lives in the U.S. and New York, so it's a different story. But he also did go to U of T. Anyway, side story. Side story. He's a fantastic author, great storyteller. But so the book has a whole bunch of stories about a whole bunch of people, and he puts these very provocative comments. Like he says, "Oh, you need 10,000 hours to be an expert at something," and it's very provocative. You're like, when I read it, I said, come on, it must be ridiculous. Why 10,000? Like, how did you make So how about if I'm like, 9,999? So I might not an expert yet, whatever. But I think part of what you take away from the book is that if you want to be really good at something, you have to spend time doing it. And so they walk through the story of Bill Gates and how he calculated all his hours before he became a professional. He went through the Beatles and calculated the hours before they became a professional. And now I understand that some of these people might be so, their worlds might be so different from ours, right? Because culturally, things might be so different. Racially, things might be different. You might think about opportunity, you might think about a whole bunch of stuff. But I think what we can distill from a lot of the book is really, if you want to be good at something, you have to spend time on that. Like if that's the one thing you take away, that could really be it. And sometimes right now, and I'm also part of those to be included, is I want a quick fix through something. I want to spend a little bit of time, kind of like the life hack of a little bit of time here, and I have like all this investment. But the reality is that for one to be very good at something, you have to spend a lot of time on it. And I think for all listeners, um, identify what you hope you're good at and just spend time doing it. Spend time, either practicing, doing it over and over again, learn about it, and that's really the way to really really improve. That's kind of
Yeah, honestly, like lots of people talk about, working smart as opposed to working hard. To be honest, guys, in my experience and lots of people's experiences, there's no substitute for working hard. You can work smart hard, but you definitely have to work hard.
Agreed. Agreed.
I totally agree. And to your point, Ayo, I think I like how you put it. You said, smart hard. It's like you.
I love the
No, I'm
play
serious.
on words.
Where you have to identify where the most value is, but at the
Agreed.
end of the day, you still have to spend time
Agreed.
doing it.
And even in order for you to even work smart, you would have to done the hard work.
Yes,
So
exactly.
you can't do one without the other, regardless. So, all right, Toby. So I have another question for you. What is one emerging trend in the tech space that you'd like to share with us today?
So I would like to share the
That
emergence.
interests you.
Interesting. I like to share the emergence of marketplaces.
Okay.
So marketplaces basically are kind of a platform that connects two people together. Right? One, might be a supplier, one might be a consumer or buyer, and kind of connects that. And it's there are lots of marketplaces. You could think about uh, Craigslist, Kijiji as part of like the OG marketplace. And then that has been unbundled to so many other ones with Airbnb and with Uber and with all these other ones. What I like to say is that there's so many niche marketplaces. Not every marketplace needs to be, the multi-billion-dollar marketplace. There could be a marketplace that a particular community actually needs that hasn't been met yet. And I feel like that's a trend that we'll probably see as time goes on. We'll see more of that kind of niche marketplaces popping up. I've seen a niche marketplace for finding uh, time to rent a studio. Like that's like
I love it.
I've seen a marketplace for finding private pools to rent, or private pools to lease by the hour or whatever. So, and they're all these kind of very niche things that I feel like would hopefully pop up. And I hope that listeners here would be inspired. Think about something that maybe you're missing in your community, and a way that you can bring people together, and maybe a marketplace might be what you
Yeah,
could do. So,
yeah, for sure. And even I feel inspired because just listening to you right now, I'm thinking of some marketplace ideas for the Rising Star platform. So yeah, thanks for being inspiring, Toby.
And the great thing about this emerging trend that Toby mentioned is that when you put your media hat on, you have to realize as well, guys, that the media landscape today is very fragmented thanks to
mm,
technology.
Yep.
So you can think about how many thousands of niche industries are out there. You can just capitalize on one and you can dominate that and you can be very successful. So do not forget that.
Yeah, for sure. So, my next question for you is, if you had a chance to meet anyone at all in the tech industry, who would it be and why?
hmm. It'll be someone that missed out, say, on a huge investment. Like some VC that overlooked
Okay.
um, some sort of company. Um, you know what? I take that back. I'd like to meet the current CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's probably one of the most underrated CEOs that has transformed a big tech giant, because it was honestly rapidly in decline with
Yes.
all the past CEOs. So I think Satya Nadella will probably be the person that I'd like to meet, just to talk to, just because he inherited a big company that was struggling in lots of ways, and has retransformed it, modernized Microsoft, with acquisition, but also with just posture in terms of openness to software and to platforms, and has transformed their cloud business, has transformed the overall outlook that Microsoft has in the developer community. Um,
It's
I think that's it.
amazing. It's amazing. That is so true. I think he's done an amazing job. I don't think anyone expected him to perform as well as he has, and it's yeah, he's no honestly, like I totally mirror what Toby's saying. He's amazing. The things that he's done with Microsoft, like Microsoft now versus Microsoft when he started,
Mhm.
is a huge difference. So yeah, that's a really good one, guys. That's a really good one. Okay.
Tough question. Tough question.
Yeah. So okay, so my last question for you is what's your favorite or well your favorite and your least favorite tech product?
And why?
Yeah. Don't forget the why.
So I really like I still do like my MacBook Pro. I really like it. I like it because it's the display, the screen is just beautiful,
It's durable.
and it's durable. I've had this laptop for 7 years now, and it's going strong. Um, definitely like that. I do like the fact that I can use all my developer tools on it, but at the same time, I don't have to worry about installing things back and forth. It's just I upgrade, and upgrades work fine. It's seamless. I don't have to worry about um, patching certain things, or my microphone not working, or this or that. It just works. So yeah, that's one piece of tech I really like. The screen, the display is really really good. So I love that. Piece of tech that is my least favorite. I think the very last BlackBerry that I got.
Oh my god, burn!
I think I think that was my least favorite, because
Yeah.
the opposite was it just didn't work. The it worked for 4 months, and then the buttons just began to
No way.
tweak out.
The screens are
So
really yeah.
so I
The
had
keys are
to
tiny.
so the BlackBerry home button stopped working,
Oh
and
no, I'm
I'll get
sorry.
into my menu, and to get out of it, I had to restart the phone.
Oh,
And
okay,
that
that
was
sucks.
and then I sent the phone back, and it came back. It worked for 2 months, and then it
Oh, you know
and
what? I
then
remember
and
this
then it broke
experience.
again.
I remember you telling me about this. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that was probably but again, I love BlackBerry. Anyway, I love I love what the company did, and I love the story of the company.
Yeah.
Um, I'm serious. I'm serious. But it's just when it came to towards the
The
end of the
very end,
company,
towards the end,
the
yeah,
very
towards
end,
the
I
end.
think I think there were a few misjudgments. But again, it's hard. In hindsight, you can be like, aha, that's it. But
Yeah, I
anyway,
remember. Yeah, because I worked at BlackBerry and I experienced a lot of that. The tail end of, the uh smartphone company as it was,
Oh
and
no.
I remember Toby like complaining about that phone to me and expecting me to have the answers, and I'm like, I don't have all the answers. I was just an intern, but okay, sure.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, that was really really good, Toby. Honestly, thank you so much for coming on. This has been amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is gold right here, and like I said at the beginning, we've got a blueprint for you guys right here, and I hope you guys learned a lot and you're feeling inspired.
yeah.
Shirka?
Thank you for having us. Having me. Yeah.
Absolutely, Toby. You were a pleasure to have, and I'm so like I'm certain 100% that our audience learned a lot from you today.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing your story from just living in Nigeria, coming to Canada, just growing as an individual at U of T has been really inspiring for me to hear. And I'm sure a lot of us tonight can take away a lot of things that you said. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Thank you
right.
for having me. Thank you,
Yeah.
fantastic host. Thank you,
Yeah.
Shrika. Thank you, Ayabami. This is great.
All
All
right.
right.
There you have it, guys. See you in the next episode.